So in the Record, in his column on Monday, Anas said that in relation to prisons, if he becomes First Minister, then he will ensure that there is no biological males in female prisons. And that's been welcomed by a lot of feminists in his own party. They think it might be a bit of a watershed moment on this particular issue. Thoughts on it, Smitty? I mean, do you think that, is it the correct move? And do you think it'll have an impact on the election?
I think it's an issue where Sarwar, if he plays it correctly, without rancour or targeting any community, but if he plays this one correctly and he puts women's rights at the heart of it, I think that could be a vote winner for Labour in the election, because the SNP is so poor on it. The SNP seem wedded to a position that no longer really has any merit after the Supreme Court ruling. I don't know why the SNP are tying themselves up in knots over this. It seems like a very straightforward thing to say that men should not be in women's prisons. I think it's a 90-10 issue, as they sometimes say in America, where the vast majority of people would be in now where Labour are on it. The big thing for me is they should have been consistent. They should never have whipped their MSPs to vote in favour of the GRR bill. It was obvious at that point, when you had women getting chucked out the chamber, the public gallery at Holyrood, for wearing suffragette colours, and the debate around that was just full of nonsense from supporters of the gender reform bill. That was Sarwar's opportunity to really lay down a marker and punish the SNP for their foolish position on it. He didn't do that then, but I'm glad he is where he is now, and I think that will give him a stick to beat Swinney with during the election campaign.
Ruth, I mean, I think politics is about dividing lines. So, say if you take the NHS, for instance, Labour say they want to improve the NHS, but then so does the SNP. So it's not really something that's going to divide the parties in the election contest. But it's clear that on this specific issue of biological males in female prisons, he has set out this dividing line. So he's changed the position. He's now got a much more robust position than he had back in 2022. I mean, do you think that this will chime with voters? Will it have any effect in April and then in May when people are casting their votes?
I think it is quite the U-turn for him to make. I mean, 2 of his MSPs lost their job in 2022, and I wonder what they're thinking right now about his U-turn.
Vindicated, probably.
Yeah, but it's left me kind of thinking, like, is this a cynical bid from Anas to get female votes? That's just me being probably cynical myself. But he did say previously on a podcast, not this podcast, another podcast, that he had deep regret that Scottish Labour didn't insist on amendments during the gender reform bill's passage. So I suppose you're allowed to change your mind on things, but as a female voter myself, like, his U-turn just makes me wonder if, like, Scottish Labour can be trusted with gender issues. It might already be too late for him, I think, to be honest with you.
It feels like something to try and combat reform, like, presenting himself on that side of the argument. I agree with Ruth. I think it's a rather cynical move from him, given that he did whip his MSPs not that long ago. But I also think, if he's genuine with it, it can only be a good thing. We're sitting in a circumstance. I read an interview, or I heard an interview with Ross Greer, and there's every chance that Ross Greer might be a member of some sort of nationalist government come June. Paul, I know you're a big Ross Greer fan, but he was sitting there saying he couldn't even say that a rapist is a man. It's quite mind-boggling the way this debate is kind of, the way the sides are so entrenched, but especially that, if you can't sit there and say a double rapist is a man, quite frankly, I think you should be barred from public office. Like, you're not you're not suitable for public office if you're unable to state the most basic of legal and biological facts. That's notwithstanding that, I realise there's issues out there for transgender people, and it's a really complex thing. But at least, I think everyone recognises that John Swinney and Anas Sarwar are the two candidates to be First Minister. Probably doesn't feel like it right now. It feels like it's just John Swinney, but at least one of them has drawn that dividing line. I think ultimately he's done it for votes. He probably doesn't mind either way. I wonder how some of his left-wing MSPs feel about it as well. But I think it's good that at least he's he's offering something different if he is to be First Minister. I mean, I think John Swinney personally probably agrees with Anas Sarwar privately, but he's so enthralled, the SNP are so enthralled to that kind of transgender lobby that seem to seep into the party.
I do think that the
under
Isle
Nicola
of
Sturgeon.
Rice case is a strange hill to die on.
It's just,
Why not? Why
it's
can't,
absolutely baffling.
given that person is a liar, why not just say Adam Bryson is a man pretending to be a woman?
Yeah.
You know, it just, Adam is not representative of trans people.
No,
You know,
no.
it just,
So,
to me,
it's
it's just
not-
trying to get a cushy gig in a female prison.
Saying the most basic of facts is not, is not letting down the transgender community in any way. And I just find it baffling that some politicians just won't see it. And quite frankly, I think people should consider that, when they're in the ballot box.